walk you through the money trail. This is a project that started off as a 2 billion ringgit project back in 1999. It was supposed to be a self-funding 2 billion ringgit project. And now that cost has grown to 12.5 billion ringgit. 12.5 billion ringgit is a number that's really very hard for the average person like me to get my head around. But to kind of put it in terms of numbers that we're more familiar with, it's 13,000 ringgit for every single taxpayer in Malaysia. Can you imagine, if you're a taxpayer, the government will give you a rebate of 13,000 ringgit with the amount that's been burnt in Port Klang. Or put another way, that's enough to fund 500,000 low-cost houses. So 500,000 families could have been housed with the money that was gone into Port Klang. For the benefit of those who are late, a lot of alphabets going around, so I'll just give you a quick rundown of the alphabet. First is PKA. PKA is the Port Klang Authority, which is a statutory body under the Ministry of Transport, Malaysia. Then PKA, back in 1999, decided to develop PKFZ, or Port Klang Free Zone. The idea was to develop a regional logistics hub. They had this idea from a hub in the Middle East that worked very well, something called the Ali Jebel Free Zone. And the idea was that Malaysia can be a logistics hub in ASEAN as well, and hence this PKFZ idea came about. So Port Klang Authority decided to do PKFZ, but Port Klang Authority did not want to do the construction itself. So it bought the land from Kuala Damansri Sdn Bhd or KDSB, and then it also signed various construction agreements with KDSB as the turnkey contractor for PKFZ. So it is the background. Whole thing started in March 1999 with the cabinet approving it. In 2001, the cost was supposed to be 1.957 billion for land and development work, and it was supposed to be entirely self-funding. Now by 31st December 2008, the cost for land and development had jumped to 4.947 billion, or 85 billion ringgit. So between 01 and 08, you saw the cost go up by nearly 3 times. PKA, Port Klang Authority, the developer, could not fund this, of course. So what happened was that the Ministry of Finance extended a soft loan, meaning a loan on very friendly terms, to Port Klang Authority to help the authority to fund PKFZ. But even though the loan itself, of course, there's still some interest to be paid, so there's about 2.5 billion ringgit of interest cost, and that takes the total project cost to 7.5 billion. But that's not all. Bear in mind, you're talking about 12.5 billion total. But already, from 1.957 billion to 7.45 billion, that's a lot of money. So for those who are more visually oriented, hold on, my chart has disappeared. But for those of you who have got the slides, maybe you can open the PDF. What it is that we can't find the other. So you can see from the very bottom left at 2001-2002, the project started off at 1.957 billion. Now between 2001 and 2002, from here to here, the land and construction costs went up from 1.957 to 3.522 million. And as Tony pointed out, what happened was that some of this was due to normal variation orders, but a lot of it was due to Port Klang Authority deciding to accelerate the construction of the project from 8 years to 2 years. So they really rushed the project, and because they rushed the project, and they couldn't afford to pay KDSC. They agreed to pay KDSC on installment terms, and agreed to pay KDSC installment terms at 7.5% per year interest, which as Tony has pointed out is very high. So together with the 3522 plus interest owing to KDSC, that takes you up to 4947 million. So on top of that, even with the installment terms, they couldn't fund the project completely. So then the MOF stepped in and gave them a soft loan. So the MOF soft loan interest is here, about 2.5 billion, which takes us up to 7.5 billion ringgit. So that's how the numbers start adding up. Construction costs, and then because you built way too fast for your own company to handle and you have to borrow to fund it, the interest cost takes it up to 7.5 billion. But actually you find that they really push the construction way too fast. Because what it turns out is that going forward into the future, they will not be able to meet their loan obligations, and this is according to the auditors, Pricewaterhouse. And if you restructure the loans and extend the loans, there's going to be another 5 billion ringgit of interest cost payable. So that's how we get in the end 12.5 billion ringgit for this whole project. So what it is now is that you have a huge project, you have a huge loss. Where do we go from here? So for many of us, this is a summary of the amount. I won't go through that. But I think what's more interesting is where do we go from here? We have already burned 7.5 billion ringgit. Standard investment practice is what's gone is gone. It's what you can recover from the investment going forward. And those of you who are businessmen will also know that. If you lost the money, too bad. What is it going to take to recover in the future? And it's still worth going on ahead if I continue this project. But looking forward, bear in mind that even on PKA's forecast, which the accountants Pricewaterhouse has said are optimistic, meaning that they actually flip too positive. The project will need another 3.5 billion ringgit just to cover cash flow, and it will cover another 5 billion ringgit to cover interest costs. So that's an extra 8.5 billion ringgit. And if you include in the extra 5 billion ringgit of interest costs, you start making money on this project only in 2051, not 2042. So 2051, if I'm still around, I'm 80 years old. And if anyone else, let's say a banker came to me, offered me a project, hey, you invest this much money, and you get back your money only when you're 80 years old, I think I'll tell you go fly a kite. This is ridiculous. So you have to think very hard and consider the alternatives. You shouldn't write off walking away from it completely, because for 8.5 billion ringgit, there's a lot of things that you can do. Some examples of what you can do. You can privatize Plus and have enough money left over to privatize LDP. If you privatize Plus, that's only going to cost you 5.25 billion ringgit. Buying out Lifetrack, which owns the LDP, is 1.2 billion ringgit. And actually after that, you still got 2 billion ringgit left over. So that's one thing you can do with the money. The other thing you can do with the money, you can build 240,000 low-cost houses. Or the other issue that's in the news right now is a lot of our students scoring a lot of A's and don't get scholarships. 8.5 billion ringgit can fund 30,000 students to study overseas. Not in Malaysia, but overseas. You can fund 30,000 students for 3 years to do their degrees overseas. Or, you can give us all back 850 ringgit each, which is not a bad option also. So with that, I'll leave you and hand over to the next speaker. Thank you very much.